Today our lesson is going to be from Chapter 3, Lesson 1, all about adding and subtracting decimals. To do, today I'd like you to open your textbook to page 178, and please make sure before we start the lesson that you have your textbook open, you have a pencil and a highlighter ready to go, and no calculators for all of Chapter 3. So pause the recording, get your materials ready, and then turn it on when you're ready to go. Let's get started. Today we're going to be talking about adding decimals. You should be on page 178 in your textbook. To add up decimals, we simply line up the decimal points. Then we add the digits in the same place value position. So let's look at example number 1. They're asking us to find the sum, which means add, of 2.3 or 23.1 and 5.8. So we're going to start off by estimating. So to me, 23 is just about a 23, and 5.8 is like 6. So 23 plus 6 would be 29. So overall, my answer, I'm hoping that when I get to the end, will be about a 29. Okay, and that will help me check to make sure that I put my decimals in the right place. So let's go over to their example. They put the 23.1 on top, and then they put 5.8, and notice they lined up these decimals nice and evenly. And before you even start adding, you can go ahead and drop that decimal down to the bottom. So then we actually do the math. So 1 plus 8 is 9, 3 plus 5 is 8, and 2 drops down because there's nothing underneath it. If we wanted to, we could draw a 0 in there, saying that we have nothing in the tens place in the 5.8. So 2 plus 0 is 2. So our final answer is 28 and 9/10. And if I go back and take a look at my estimate, I said my answer should be about 29. So this is a good answer. It's reasonable. So let's look at example number 2. They're going to have us start off by making our estimates. 29.6 is about 30 in my opinion, and 14.7 is about 15. So I would say our answer then, 30 plus 15, should be right around 45. So let's go ahead and add our numbers. We take our 29.6 and put that over my 14.7. And then let's go ahead and add 6 plus 7 is 13, and I need to carry 1. 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 plus 4 is 14, so again I need to carry, and 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So my answer is 44.3, and is that about, I'll bring down my estimate of 45, is this correct? Yes. So the sum of 44.3 is a reasonable answer. Now let's have you try a couple. I'll do one with you, and then I'm going to have you try it your own. So I'm going to start off with my estimate for 54.7 and 21.4. So 54.7 I would say is about 55. And 21 plus and 4/10 is about 20. Or we could say 21. So I would say my estimate is about 76 when I add those together. So let's go ahead and line them up. Now I'll actually do my math. 54.7, and I see I have a decimal in the second one, 21.4. So I'll go ahead and do my math. 7 plus 4 is 11, carry the 1, and I'll bring that decimal down right away. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 1 is 6, and 5 plus 2 is 7. So checking my answer, it looks like 76.1 is pretty reasonable because it's very close to my estimate of 7.6. So at this time, I'd like you to pause the video, and I'd like you to solve problem B and C. Be sure to do your estimates first. So let's get that lined up. Something plus something equals something. And then I want you to actually do the math and then turn on the video and you can see if your work matches my work. Okay, let's see if your work looks like mine. I said 14.2 is about 14, and 23.5 is 23, so that gives me an estimate of 37. So notice I lined up 14.2 over 23.5, and my decimals are nice and straight. So I got 37 and 7/10, which is very close to my 37 for my estimate, so this is a good, reasonable answer. Over here on C, I'm rounded off to 17 and 33, and when you add those together we get 50. So I lined up our 17.3 over 33.5. Notice my decimals are nice and straight up and down, and I got 50.8. And 50.8 and 50 are very close, so I know this is a very reasonable answer. So, moving on to subtracting decimals. Look at page 179 up here at the top. And if you'll notice, to subtract decimals again, our main thing is to line up those decimal points and subtract. Now we have a new fancy word in here. It says you may need to annex or place zeros at the end of the decimal in order to subtract. Annex means you might have to add additional zeros. So let's see what they're talking about. Starting off, let's get an estimate for our numbers up here. So we have 5.774, so 5 and 774 thousandths. Let's just round that off to a nice old, about 6. And we're looking at 2 and 371 thousandths, that's pretty much a 2. So 6 minus 2 is about a 4. That's my estimate. So I'm going to go over here in the problem, and I line up my decimal points. And this time I do not need to annex any zeros. All the place values have a number that we can subtract from. So everything is lined up nice and tight, so I can do the math. 4 minus 1 is 3. 7 minus 7 is 0. 7 minus 3 is 4. And 5 minus 2 is 3. So now I check from reasonableness. Is 3.403 pretty close to my estimate of 4? It is. So this is a reasonable answer. Okay, so this example is going to have a little extra trick to it. We have the whole number 6 subtracting 4 and 78 hundredths. Well, on this whole number 6, there is a decimal point. We could rewrite this as 6 in the decimal, but as you can see, we don't have any other place values behind it where this number is going to. So let's start off with our estimate. And 6 is about a 6. That's nice and easy. And 4.7, we could round that to a nice 5. So let's take 6 minus 5, and our answer should be about 1. So now, setting up our problem, we write down our 6. And 6 does have a decimal. It's just written in invisible ink. We don't usually see it because it's a whole number. And then we need to line up our next number. So we have the 4 and 78 hundredths. But we have a little trick here, is we don't have anything up here in the top to subtract from. So what we do is we're going to annex zeros. Annex zeros means that we're going to add them. So we're going to put the zeros here on top so that we can do our work. So let's get started. 8 from 0, we can't do that. And if we go over and try to borrow from here, there's nothing to borrow from. So we're going to have to go all the way over to the 6. And so we're going to take 1 away from the 6, and that would make this 10. Now I have something for my ones place or hundredths place value to borrow from. So if I need to borrow for here, I'm going to slash my 10 and make it a 9, and this one becomes now 10. So 10 minus 8 is 2, 9 minus 7 is 2, and 5 minus 4 is 1, and we bring that decimal down. And so 1 and 22 hundredths is a reasonable answer because we had said our estimate should be about 1, and 1 and 22 hundredths is very close to that. All right, so let's look at example number 5 here. They have the whole number 23 and 4 and 216 thousandths. This isn't a decimal at the end. This is actually like a period at the end of the number sentence. So start off, let's go ahead and estimate together. 23 is about 23, and 4 and 216 thousandths is still about a 4. So our answer should be around 19. So why don't you go ahead and set up your, plug the numbers into the boxes here on the sheet. See if you can figure out where they should go, and then go ahead and do the subtraction. So pause the recording now, do your work, and then turn the recording back on to see if you've done it correctly. Okay, so the 23 would have had to go up here on top, and we would have had to annex or add 3 zeros because the 4 had 3 decimal places behind it, so we needed to annex those zeros. So this one was kind of tough because we have all these zeros all the way across the top. We'd have to go all the way back to the 3 and change it to 2 to borrow from it to make this 10, which then we borrow from it and make 9 to make this one a 10, and then we borrow from it again for this 0 to make this one 10. So 10 minus 6 is 4, 9 minus 1 is 8, 9 minus 2 is 7, 12 minus 4 is 8, and the 1 comes down because we had to double borrow out here. We couldn't take the 4 from a 2, so we had to borrow from over here and make this a 1 and make it 12. So 18 and 784 thousandths is very close to our estimate of 19, so it's a good problem. All right, let's look here on page 179. Let's look at a couple of these problems. Let's go ahead, together we'll do D. So 9 is my larger number. So I write down my problem and I put my decimal right below it, and I have a 3 in front and then a 6, 7, 1. And so I can take 3 minus 1 is 2. I cannot take 7 from 4, so I'm going to have to borrow from the 5 and make it a 4 and make this 14. 14 minus 7 is 7. And I can't take 6 from 4, so I'm going to have to borrow again to make this 14, and 14 minus 6 is 8. I bring down that decimal, and 8 minus 3 is 5. So why don't you go ahead and try E and F, and pause the recording while you do your work, and then turn it back on and check and see if your work looks like mine. All right, so here's your answer. $50.62 minus $39 and $81. We'd have to borrow a few different times across here, but you should have gotten $10.81. Over here on F, you had to annex 2 zeros, and then we had to borrow all the way across from the 4, make it a 3, so we can make this 10, so we can borrow from it and make this one 10. So you would have had 4 and 91 hundredths if you did the work correctly. And if you're getting stuck, come and ask me questions. So here on example number 6, reading this is a story problem. The first video clip was 22.36 minutes long. The second clip was 17 minutes and 3/100 of a minute long. What was the total length of the video? Then we had the total. Those are keywords in here, total length, and that should tell you addition. So they estimated that 22 and 36/100 is about 22, and 17 and 3/100 is about 17, and they added those two together to get 39. So they started off by lining up the decimals, 22.36 over 17.03, and doing the math we get 39 and 39/100 of a minute long. Alright, so let's try one on our own. Here we have a story problem. Jonathan is traveling for work. This morning his GPS said that the total distance to his destination was 589.4 miles. And before lunch he drove 208.62 miles. How much farther does he need to travel? Here's those key words right here. How much farther? That should tell you subtraction. So we go ahead and start with our total, 589.4, and we'd subtract the 208.62. So this is a problem with subtraction that we have to annex a 0 to fill that hundredths place value so that we can do our work. So we'll go across and borrow from the 4 to make a 3, so we can subtract 2 from 10, which is 8. The 6 can't come out of a 3, so we need to borrow from the 9 and make it 13. So 13 minus 6 is 7. Bring down my decimal. 8 minus 8 is 0. 8 minus 0 is 8. And 5 minus 2 is 3. So he needs to travel another 380.78 miles. All right, so let's go ahead and have you try some of these problems on your own. So practice makes perfect. Page 181 through 182, I'd like you to try 1 through 11 all. And if you want to take the bonus this week or on this assignment, go ahead and do problems 1 through 16. Good luck, and if you're getting stuck, make sure you raise your hand so I can come and help you.